is the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Hey, Shannon, great to be with you.
All right, I want to play a little bit more of what happened here in Washington yesterday. Estimates are that this pro-Palestine rally was up to 100,000 people. We've got images of it and of what transpired last night when some of them took to the White House, defacing one of the gates there, climbing onto the gates. Are you surprised at all by the amount that we've seen of this kind of response? And I have, to be fair, a lot of people I saw in that rally yesterday were very much worried about civilian lives that are being lost in Gaza. But there were others who were saying things that were clearly indicative of making sure that Israel no longer exists on the world map.
Yes, no, it is surprising to see this level of anti-Semitism that has sprung up around the country. Apparently, it's been dormant for a while, but this has given rise to that, and we're deeply concerned about it. The opening of the program today, Shannon, I think gave a great snapshot of the crisis that Israel faces, and that's why right out of the blocks, as soon as I became Speaker, within the hour, we passed a resolution to make clear that Congress stands by our great friend in that region. We always will. And then we passed, as you saw, our first priority is an emergency immediate funding aid to Israel so that they can defeat Hamas and protect and continue as a nation. That's what's at stake. I spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu on Saturday evening a week ago, and he said this is a battle between good versus evil, light versus darkness. I could not agree more, and I think the whole world can see that.
So you passed the standalone measure, but the man who runs the Senate, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, has this to say about what you passed in the House.
The proposal is simply not a serious one, and worse, it still wastes precious time at a moment when we need to help Israel, Ukraine, and send humanitarian aid to Gaza ASAP.
And it's not just Democrats. This is the headline from The Hill. McConnell and Speaker Johnson sharply divided on the year-end strategy. So Democrat and Republican leaders over in the Senate say there's no way the standalone measure gets anywhere. The White House has said it would veto it anyway. So with time of the essence, the urgency here, why waste time on a measure that has almost zero chance of actually aiding the Israeli people?
Shannon, it's really surprising to hear Senator Schumer say that it's not a serious proposal. It's exactly what was requested, $14.5 billion. What they don't like is that in the House, we're trying to be good stewards of the taxpayers' resources. We offset that spending. Instead of printing new dollars or borrowing it from another nation to send over to fulfill our obligations and help our ally, we want to pay for it. What a concept. We're trying to change how Washington works. And so by taking that money from this giant fund, over $67 billion that's sitting there to build up the IRS, we weighed those priorities and said, you know what? It's more important to protect Israel right now than it is to hire more IRS agents. Apparently, Senator Schumer disagrees with that, but I'll take that debate to the American people all day long.
Well, and he's pointing, as others are, to the Congressional Budget Office, a nonpartisan group that scores these things. And they said, actually, if you take that funding from the IRS, it's going to add billions to the deficit because you cut IRS personnel. They're not then collecting that revenue that they bring in. One of your House colleagues, Democrat Brendan Boyle, put it this way. He says, you are prioritizing, quote, deficit-busting tax giveaways for the wealthy over helping Israel.
Look, only in Washington can you cut funding, add a pay-for to a new spending measure, and they say that it's terrible for the deficit. Listen, we're trying to take care of our priorities, and we will. We know that these other important measures are right there on the table, and we're working through it hour by hour, day by day, and we're going to meet those obligations. But we have to do these things in the proper order, and we are committed to changing how Washington works. I think you see a united and energized House Republican Conference. All of our members are working together in good faith, trying to solve these great challenges that we face, and I'm very optimistic that we're going to do that. But we are going to also change the trajectory we're on. Shannon, right now we have a $33.6 trillion federal debt. Just last week, the Treasury Department of the Biden administration announced that we're going to have to borrow over $1.5 trillion over the next 2 quarters, 6 months, to continue our operation as a government. This is not a sustainable track. We can take care of our obligations, and we can do it in a responsible manner, and that's what we're committed to.
Okay, so there's been talk that you want to quickly offer up Ukraine aid, of course, in a separate measure, potentially tying the U.S. border and security issues to that. Group of Democrats say this, and there's opposition from both sides of the aisle on that plan as well, but they say Republicans can't move their extreme, cruel, anti-immigrant agenda through the regular legislative process. So they're trying to make an end run around Congress and exploit 2 foreign wars to force it into law. They say Republicans don't actually want to work on things that would change the problems at the border, beefing up port entry personnel, things like more legal pathways to citizenship, and getting at the root causes of migration. So are there things that you can work on that you can get bipartisan buy-in and attaching that to Ukraine aid, or is this going to be about holding your caucus together and getting all the Republican votes where you have a very small majority?
No, what this is about is advancing the agenda and the first priority is the American people. I don't know which Democrat gave you that absurd quote, but they clearly are not listening to their constituents. If you go out into the country, people will say, look, we understand our role as a leader in the free world. We understand that we're the great superpower that needs to assist and ensure that freedom survives, but we have to take care of our own house first. And securing our border is an essential priority to the American people. So they're not listening to their constituents. I think that's a tone-deaf response. Again, we can do all of these things together, but when you couple Ukraine and the border, that makes sense to people because they say if we're going to protect Ukraine's border and we have to do what is necessary there, we don't want Vladimir Putin to prevail, we can't afford that. The free world can't afford that. But we have to take care of our own border first, and that's what we're saying. This is policy changes that are necessary. There's a growing consensus in the Congress, certainly amongst Republicans, but also even some across the aisle who recognize we have to change what is happening. Over 6.3 million illegal crossings since Joe Biden took office. It's more than the population of my state. We cannot continue this, and everyone knows it. And the fentanyl that's come over the border, the human trafficking, the cartels making billions of dollars on our backs, we are going to stop that, and the House Republicans are committed to it. I think the people are with us, Shannon.
So as we talk about spending more dollars on those things, our border, Ukraine, more tax dollars flowing into those things, we're running out of money here again in a couple of weeks. Are we going to have another continuing resolution, that temporary financial Band-Aid? How long would it last? Would it be clean? Or are you going to try to attach other things to it?
The reason I look a little haggard this morning, Shannon, is because I was up late last night. We worked through the weekend on a stopgap measure. We recognize that we may not get all the appropriations bills done by this deadline of November 17th, but we are going to continue in good faith. And the difference between what we call on Capitol Hill a continuing resolution now and what we've dealt with in years past is that this would allow us time, and everybody understands, allow us time to continue this appropriations process. We're committed to bringing 12 bills to the floor as the law, statutory law requires Congress to do. That hasn't been done in many years. But again, we're changing the way Washington works because we believe it needs to be more accountable and more transparent for the people. And so we're going to fight that fight every single day, and we'll get that job done.
Okay, I want to talk about some social issues. You've got a lot of critics who say that you are wildly out of step with the American people. Let's talk abortion first. One of the groups opposing you says this: he wants a total abortion ban with no exceptions. He supported bans that would not only criminalize abortion, but ban IVF treatments and common forms of birth control, and that you voted against access to contraception. Where are you on these issues? Is that an accurate assessment of where you are? Because that's not in step with the American people.
No, Shannon, look, I'm pro-life. I've said very clearly I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I believe in the sanctity of every single human life. So I come to Congress with deep personally held convictions. But guess what? So do my 434 other colleagues in the House. Everyone comes to Congress with their deeply held convictions. But the process here is that you make law by consensus. And I've not brought forward any measure to address any of those issues. Right now, our priorities are funding the government, handling these massive national security priorities that we have in crises around the globe, and taking care of changing and reforming how Congress works. That's what we're going to do. Listen, prior to the modern time, I mean, until recently, actually, almost all of our nation's leaders openly acknowledged that they were also Bible-believing Christians. I mean, this is not something that should cause great unrest, okay? It's just that Washington, right now, what you're seeing, Washington and the Associated Press Corps are engaging with a leader who openly acknowledges faith and the foundational principles of our country.
Okay,
I think this is a healthy discussion, but it doesn't affect how we run Congress.
To be clear, though, have you voted against fertility treatments and access to contraception? Would you?
I don't think so. I'm not sure what they're talking about. I really don't remember any of those measures.
But do you oppose anything?
I am personally pro-life, yeah. No, no, of course not. No, that's something that's blessed a lot of families who have problems with fertility. Of course, that's a great thing. I would support that. But look, again, these are not issues that are on the front of the agenda, and we can come with our convictions, and we can govern in an accountable, transparent manner for the American people, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay, so you've talked a lot about your faith. You don't backtrack. You're not shy about that. You're bold about that. You said if people want to know your worldview, go open up the Bible. You know that concerns a lot of people. Your critics are hearkening back to things that you've said about gay marriage, homosexuality, conversion therapy. There's a lengthy guest essay in the New York Times, not surprisingly, not big fans of yours. It's titled this, "The Embodiment of White Christian Nationalism in a Tailored Suit." They point to a definition in Christianity Today of that, saying it's a belief that the American nation is defined by Christianity and that the government should take active steps to keep it that way. Is that an accurate description of your view of how the government should function?
No, I'm not even sure what the term means. And look, there are entire industries built on tearing down people like me. I understand that comes with the territory, and we're not fazed by it. But listen, what I believe in are the founding principles of the country: individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, human dignity. Those are essential American principles. And so I've been labeled all kinds of stuff, but these people don't know me. Look, my family, it's no fun to be misquoted and maligned and mocked, of course, but we know that comes with a job, and we're unfazed. We're going to continue to love all people. We're going to continue to bless even those who persecute us, because that's our worldview, and that's how we operate. And if people just, everybody take a breath, give us a chance, and you'll see what principled governance looks like. That's what I'm committed to doing.
Okay, we got to go, but I have to ask you this because there's been so much made about it. Vanity Fair says this: what's up with Mike Johnson's very shady-seeming financial disclosures? They say you've never reported a bank account or an asset on a financial disclosure form going back to 2016. Can you clear that up for us?
Yes, look, I'm a man of modest means, okay? I was a lawyer, but I did constitutional law, and most of my career I spent in the nonprofit sector. We have 4 kids, 5 now, that are very active, and I have kids in graduate school, law school, undergraduate. We have a lot of expenses, but I can relate to everybody else. My father was a firefighter, right? I didn't grow up with great means, but I think that helps us be a better leader because we can relate to every hardworking American family. That's who we are, and I think it governs and helps govern my decisions and how I lead.
Well, majority of Americans now say they're living paycheck to paycheck, so a lot of folks in the same boat as they try to figure out this economy. Yep. Speaker, we're wishing you the best in trying to keep the House running and the country functioning. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Shannon.
We got to go, but I have to ask you this because there's been so much made about it. Vanity Fair says this: what's up with Mike Johnson's very shady-seeming financial disclosures? They say you've never reported a bank account or an asset on a financial disclosure form going back to 2016. Can you clear that up for us?
Yes, look, I'm a man of modest means, okay? I was a lawyer, but I did constitutional law, and most of my career I spent in the nonprofit sector. We have 4 kids, 5 now, that are very active, and I have kids in graduate school, law school, undergraduate. We have a lot of expenses, but I can relate to everybody else. My father was a firefighter, right? I didn't grow up with great means, but I think that helps us be a better leader because we can relate to every hardworking American family. That's who we are, and I think it governs and helps govern my decisions and how I lead.
Well, majority of Americans now say they're living paycheck to paycheck, so a lot of folks in the same boat as they try to figure out this economy. Yep. Speaker, we're wishing you the best in trying to keep the House running and the country functioning. Thank you, sir.